Welcome back to the Weekly Driver podcast. My name is James Rea. I'm an automotive columnist for Bay Area News Group, and I publish the website www.TheWeeklyDriver.com. My friend and colleague, as always, is Bruce Aldrich, and today we have on a new friend, Alex Guberman. I met last night, of all things, at a podcasters meeting, and I'd heard about Alex from another mutual friend, and Alex was kind enough to be on our program this morning. So welcome, Alex, to our podcast, and we're ready to hear all about your experience and expertise in electric vehicles. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. This is exciting. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Alex, can you just take us through some of the particulars about your YouTube channel, how it started, and what your goal is with your, as you mentioned to me last night, you do three videos a day. So give us a rundown on what you have going with your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so just like most YouTubers, I've never planned on being a YouTuber because that's crazy, you know. So, but I did something crazy back in 2012. I was, trying to get a new car. My lease on my Jaguar was expiring, and I was looking for something, and I just wasn't excited about any car that I saw that year. And someone recommended that I take a look at the Tesla. And at that time, I only knew that they had a two-seater, like a roadster, that was extremely expensive. It was all electric, and I told them that they were crazy and kind of, forgot about it. But then that same person said, they actually have a four-door sedan out there. You might want to check it out. So I was passing by, I think they're literally first store, one of the first stores in Santana Row here in San Jose, California. I walked in, and when I saw their prototype, it was early 2012, like I literally fell in love. I thought, oh my God, this is exactly what cars should be. And on top of it, it's electric with a really awesome range, which, sparked a lot of, activist thoughts in my head as far as, protecting the environment and, maybe not fighting all the wars we were fighting at that time and still are now.
Yes.
And so I just put a deposit down pretty much right away and waited for a while, for about a year or so. But I became one of the first 3,000 people who got the car in 2012. I was lucky enough to get my car signed by Elon Musk on the visor. I actually, before selling it, took it off, and it's hanging on my wall. I'm looking at it right now.
There you go.
I'm on my third Tesla now, just for the reference. So I became a huge fan. But don't forget, 2012. Everybody at that time thought I was an idiot for buying a car for an unknown manufacturer.
Yes.
When was the last time anybody really made it to the market? And secondly, all electric cars. I mean, that
Yes.
was insane. So all of my friends and family told me I'm an idiot. But I thought, hey, listen, I felt that my generation haven't really contributed to this planet in any way. So I thought that was kind of our last chance. And I said, even if I lose my money, at least I made a decent attempt on changing the world,
Sure.
And but I decided to go to Facebook and find other people who are idiots like myself, and I started a Facebook group, and it started to grow, and Tesla started becoming kind of cool, and I realized that I had a pretty big following. I think at that time it was like 10,000 members, and I thought it would be silly not to sort of do something, maybe produce some sort of a product or a service. And at that time, I was already kind of dabbling in YouTube. I had a men's fashion and lifestyle channel. And I said, what I should do, because I'm falling kind of behind on all this exciting Tesla news. I'm going to produce a weekly news show for my audience. And I called my channel Everything Tesla at that time. And it started to grow just like the Facebook group. And halfway through, about a year into it, I realized that there's more going on than just Tesla, because Tesla kind of started to drag everybody into this whole electric car movement. And I just didn't want to put all eggs in my basket. And, Tesla was actually already, acting a little bit odd. And so I renamed my channel into E4 Electric and started doing, at that time, daily news. And now I do 3 videos per day, Monday through Friday, because there's just so many. Like today, there's more than 3. I can probably make 5 videos As a matter of fact, last night I had to make one at 2 in the morning after this whole thing with Elon Musk and SEC.
Yes.
So, and then I started getting invited to different events for different manufacturers, being able to review cars before or drive cars before they make it to the market. And the rest is kind of history. And I now went full time with this YouTube channel as my full time job in July.
Fantastic.
Wow. So you're a 3-time owner? Is that correct?
Yes, I'm on my third Tesla Model S, yes.
One of the things about those cars is like the fit and finish, the quality, the electronics, the dashboards and all. Is there much, are they getting better or worse or staying the same over those 3 cars?
So to be honest with you, I mean, fit and finish is not something that most people ever notice. So I always thought that was the least of the issues. I've never had something on mine, but I have seen some. As a matter of fact, I saw Model 3 at the semi-truck launch that I went to, and that had some little weird gaps and stuff like that. But most people don't notice. I think that's really not an issue, and they obviously got much, much better at it. My problem is more with you're right, electronics. Like, for example, I'm on my third one, and yet I've been dealing with issues, not just electronics, that really shouldn't be there. It's kind of a twofold problem. First, I'm sick and tired of going back and forth, getting all the stuff fixed. But secondly, it's also about how you get treated when something goes wrong, right?
Yes.
Right.
I've owned cars that were, not exactly free of maintenance or issues. But when I showed up, I was treated like a king, and I almost wanted my car to break down.
Okay. To get a little love, huh? Okay.
Get a little car love, yeah.
Yeah, and to be fair, Tesla was exactly like that in the first couple of years. As a matter of fact, if you show up to, bring your car in, they will always give you a better and more, a better model that is more powerful and with more features, because they kind of wanted you to just buy that one. So their service was amazing at first, but unfortunately now, and I believe this was the number one crowdsourced question for Elon Musk during their earnings call for their Q4 results, is the customer service, unfortunately.
That's slipping then, huh?
Yeah.
Alex, to take you away just for a moment from Tesla, last week we interviewed a very knowledgeable guy about the car that was exciting to me at the LA Auto Show. We don't know each other, but I don't know if you were in LA or not. I assume that you were, but we really both got a kick out of the Rivian with the new pickup truck and its SUV. Have you had a chance to do any studies on that? And if you have, what do you think of that particular new car?
Right. So I was actually at their a private unveiling in Los Angeles before the auto show, and then I also once again visited their display at the LA Auto Show during the media days.
Yes.
I've interviewed their CEO RJ pretty much right after the unveiling, so it's on my channel.
Thank you.
So it's obviously they have done something that no one else was able to do, which is actually almost steal a spotlight from Tesla, beat them to market with an electric truck with a really decent range, and you can argue about looks. I'm not a huge fan of the way it looks, but I don't think trucks are not exactly, their appeal is not the design.
Yes.
Usually. So whatever, I'm just saying it's not exactly, won me over with their look. The way their batteries are designed and especially cooled, and I believe because of that, they're able to be 25% more dense, is definitely another breakthrough or big advancement.
Yes.
Now, we have gotten this excited before about different cars and brands. What seems to be an issue with Tesla and even legacy manufacturers like, Kia and Audi and Mercedes is the execution, right?
Yes.
The question is, can they execute? And I do have to say that their staff, their executive staff, impressive, but they all come, they come from Jeep and other manufacturers that are kind of a legacy manufacturers that, make gas cars.
Yes.
Not that Jeep even that over impressive as a car or reliable, but I just don't know where innovation would come from as far as executing this plan. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not seeing something. So, impressive and great publicity. They sure know how to do that. Rihanna was at their at their unveiling. Unfortunately, I didn't know that, so I might have bumped into her and never knew.
Yes.
I just did. She changes her looks very often, so I don't.
She changes her looks more than you have videos.
She's like a chameleon. Yep.
Exactly. Yes, more often than I change Model S cars in
That's
my
right.
garage. Yeah. So now all eyes on can they execute, number one, and number two, will people buy this truck? Because it is up there. The price is up there, even with all of the incentives. It's definitely a luxury truck, which is kind of a oxymoron, if you ask me.
Yes.
Right? To me, a truck is usually a utility car, and if you pay a lot of money for it, it needs to actually make that money back somehow.
Yes.
So we're still, they do have an SUV that's built on exactly the same platform, looks very much similar. So that's definitely will compete with, many other legacy manufacturers probably successfully. I sat in the car. It's amazing. I mean, it's definitely great, and from what I saw was pretty good build quality.
Yes.
But yeah, listen, I'm excited about this, but, a little bit cautious, but optimistic.
Yes. Now, Alex, to take you in a different area, we just met last night. It was nice to shake hands and have a little bit of a chat. If you don't mind, could you tell us your background? You're from Russia, and you lived in the Silicon Valley for, I think you told me, 25 years, and you've recently moved to Sacramento. So on a personal note, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes, I'm originally from Moscow, Russia, and my parents brought me here in 1992. I was 15. I'm 41 now.
Yes.
And pretty much as soon as I got out of high school, I started actually doing a little bit of television production on the local public access channel. I don't know if many people even remember those.
Yes.
Maybe they even exist now. But I ended up creating a website for my, for my show at that time. And people started asking me to make websites for them. So, and at that time, Silicon Valley started to really boom, and I ended up becoming a web designer and a web developer. And for the last pretty much 20 years, I worked for, different Silicon Valley, giants and startups and everything in between, until, I was able to go full time with my YouTube channel. And I did move to Sacramento simply because, going from a Silicon Valley salary to an up-and-coming YouTube channel is not exactly, solid financial decision. So
Sure.
I already owned a house here in Sacramento because that's the only place in California I could still afford to buy one outright.
Yes.
So I moved here to kind of, get my channel, going, especially, financially, getting some sponsors and some traction. And after that, we'll see. I mean, it's the capital of the state that's one of the leaders in green energy. So I've seen quite a few interesting initiatives here and events, like the one last week launching the self-driving 3D printed shuttle on the local university campus.
Ollie.
So it's been definitely, Ollie. It's interesting, and the mayor was there, and our congresswoman was there, and the president of the university. This was a big deal. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but I think I'm just in the beginning of it. So excited to see what happens next.
Yes.
Interesting stuff for sure. What do you think about hydrogen fuel cell cars versus battery electric cars?
Not much. I'm definitely excited generally about electric technology, but unfortunately, this technology seems to be kind of dead on arrival, and not that so much because it's a bad technology. Sometimes somebody has to win. The issue, of course, is that you can't refuel, if you will, that your electric car at home like you can with battery powered electric cars, and the infrastructure is not there. I believe there's only like less than 100 fueling stations for the hydrogen fuel cell cars in California, and that's the only place in the U.S. where you can even own one. I believe Toyota Mirai, the hydrogen fuel cell car, is only being sold here.
Yes.
There is a company called Nikola Motors that's, is, I guess, a semi-truck competitor to Tesla. And they originally said that they would build out the infrastructure just specifically for trucking, for the long-distance trucking. But even they announced, 2 weeks ago, that they're actually going to start producing the battery-powered semi-trucks, which kind of tells me that they're probably going to abandon their original plan. It is relatively okay and kind of still kicking in Japan and even in Europe, but I just don't see a way for it to win over, battery electric cars that are pretty much kind of on their way to winning the world, if you ask me.
I think you're right. Yeah. How about
nice try, and I just don't think it's going to go anywhere.
How about, is anyone looking at swapping out batteries instead of trying to do a quick charge, or is there some new battery technology on the horizon?
Yeah, well, so I'm actually a huge fan of a battery swap. I believe the biggest problem with electric cars is the fact that you cannot refuel them as fast as the gas cars. And as far as I'm concerned, in order for a new technology, any new technology to be successful and replace the old technology, it has to be better than the old technology in all, important aspects of it. And in electric cars, they are better in almost every single way than gas cars, except for one, which is kind of important. If you look at Teslas, right, you can supercharge them, but even the supercharging at the highest rate will take you 45 minutes. This is why I own and just bought a plug-in hybrid Chevy Volt, because I just don't see myself, when I'm driving to Los Angeles, for example, spending 45 minutes when everybody else is spending 3. Now, the solution for that is either extremely fast charging, which probably will come with solid-state batteries, which are at least 5 years away at best, or just swapping the battery. Now, Tesla actually had a pilot at Harris Ranch, I believe, location of supercharging, of superchargers, where they actually implemented that, and you could swap batteries on the Model S and I believe Model X. But they closed that down very quietly, and the Model 3, their latest car, doesn't even have the capabilities. But there is a technology on the market right now. There's a Chinese company called NIO, and they're selling cars in China right now. They're selling all-electric SUV. They sold over 10,000 of them last year, but they just premiered. They went public here in the United States, and obviously they're going to be crossing over and bringing their cars to North America and Europe. They do have battery swapping stations. Actually, about a dozen of them already functioning.
Wow.
One of them was right next to the Tesla supercharger location in China, and you can battery swap in 3 minutes, just like with a gas car. As a matter of fact, probably faster than some, and that's a huge advantage. But think about it. There's another major advantage to that is if you buy a car, an electric car, your biggest concern is the battery, because it's the most expensive and fragile part of the car.
Yes.
Now, people go like, well, what happens in 3 years when the battery is really improved, or my battery is degraded, or I used to, need to drive only 5 miles to my work, and now I have to drive 30 miles to my work. Well, with the swappable batteries, you can always upgrade those or downgrade those to whatever you want if that battery is part of a lease deal as a separate thing than from the car. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So that
makes
way
sense. Sounds
away,
complicated, but it makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like your cell phone, right? Your cell phone plan allows you to add a cell phone or subtract. You can go to a different plan with more or less minutes, international, domestic, and it's flexible, and it kind of evolves throughout, the life of your, cell phone, depending on your needs. I think the car batteries need to do the same. We do the same with batteries of our flashlights and our remote controls, right?
Yes.
Right.
So I think that's the way to go. That's why I'm really excited about NIO. This is why I think Tesla made a mistake by abandoning that technology.
The Weekly Driver podcast gets support from AmericanTrucks.com. Visit www.americantrucks.com.
And one more question about batteries. We'll get off this. What's the story on what's it called? You would repurpose, or when they're done, how do you recycle them?
Right. The biggest criticism of that electric cars get right now, wrongfully most of the time, is that, it still takes more fossil fuel energy to make and drive electric cars than it does with gas cars. It's not true, because I think after about 40 or 50,000 miles, it actually turns the other way, obviously. And of course, it's because we can't really manufacture the green cars in a green way just yet, though that's changing as well. But the biggest thing, of course, is recycling of lithium-ion batteries, and that's the type of batteries that electric cars have, and they're pretty big, and it's almost impossible to sort of recycle them, though there are technologies now that do that. Nissan and a few other companies now offer reconditioning services where you can take the battery and either reconditioning it to put it back in your car, or you can actually create a battery for your home or business to retain the energy that you get from your solar panels throughout the day, so you can use it at night or during peak hours. So recycling those batteries doesn't necessarily mean kind of disposing of them, but more like repurposing them. And I think that's a whole new industry that hopefully will come out of it is for that. However, it is something that we and the whole industry needs to figure out.
Yes,
right.
I think we're not settled on the battery technology just yet, right? If solid batteries come along, then that whole lithium-ion battery recycling industry will go down in flames, and I think that's why people are not attempting it yet on a large scale. But absolutely, we do need to figure that out. What do we do with that to make sure that we are not polluting the environment that way?
Alex, I'm going to go back to the LA Auto Show just for a second, and I'm a little bit jealous because I wasn't invited to the private Rivian gathering. But the other car that was there that I'm sure you have an opinion about is the Bion, and they made a big presentation about that, and it had that vast horizontal screen across, no console, no nothing, just a big screen, however long it was, 4 feet long, and about 6 or 7 or 10 inches deep. Did you have a chance to examine that car? And if so, what do you think of that?
Absolutely. I'm actually a reservation holder for Bion, for the M-Byte, and I've been a huge fan. I've actually ridden in that car quite a few times now. I'm surprised they're not asking me to pay lease on that.
Yes.
But I've also visited their factory in Nanjing back in June, when it was basically a pile of dirt. And during the, I believe, CES in January, they showed us pictures of what it looks like now, and it's almost a complete thing. So things in China happen very quickly. And the factory is huge. It took us about 10 minutes to just go around it in the bus.
Wow.
Yeah, and their executive staff is extremely impressive. They came from, mainly from the BMW I team, but there are also people from Nissan and Tesla, and it is really impressive. They kind of have their headquarters in the most important parts of the world for electric cars, right?
Yes.
China, Germany, and Silicon Valley.
Yes.
I was just at their offices actually here in Silicon Valley in Santa Clara. They had their latest prototype, camouflaged and everything.
Yes.
And they are, unlike Rivian, to me, now that I've met pretty much most of their, top staff and saw their factory and saw how they progress with, their, promises versus delivery. I saw their plans for the factory, and when I talked to the guy who's heading that project, it looks like these guys are on track to do everything they've promised in this 24-month period. And this car will be produced in China, which means it will be produced relatively cheaply and then imported here in the United States and Europe, and it's going to be an amazing car. See, the startups, and I don't consider Tesla a startup anymore, but these electric car startups, because they're starting from scratch, they're able to innovate.
Yes.
Right, just like Tesla did. But once you become big, innovation is not something you can really do easily. But these guys can still innovate. And I think Bion has innovated more than anybody else in the last year. I mean, you mentioned this amazing, dashboard screen, right?
Yes,
There's also a screen on their wheel, which is another impressive thing. The car doesn't, you don't have to open the car with a fob or a key or a card.
Yes.
It actually uses facial recognition to recognize you just like your iPhone would. To unlock the car. There are tons of amazing technology in that car, and I have pretty much no doubts that they will stay on track and produce this car first in China and then in 2020 here in the United States, and I cannot wait for that car.
Yes.
Though you mentioned LA Auto Show, Biden only premiered their user experience, which is, again, impressive.
Yes.
But I thought after the Rivian, the second most impressive thing was Audi premiering their e-tron GT,
Yes.
which was I was also lucky to actually to drive. I think I was one of the first 100 people, including their staff, to drive it because it's a 2021 prototype. We actually had to have a police escort through the streets of Los Angeles, which was a trip.
Yeah. I'm sure
and
they arrested you first.
I'm sure they
Go
wanted
after the
to.
journalists, yeah.
Yeah, after the journalists first. Go ahead.
Exactly, right. So that was fun, but I'm really high on Audi e-tron. I'm actually a reservation holder, and that's the car that I'm probably going to be switching from Tesla to their SUV that's pretty much in production right now.
Yes.
I think deliveries start next month in Europe and sometime this summer here in the United States. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that and many other cars that are now coming out there, including from legacy manufacturers that are actually getting their crap together and producing decent electric cars for the mass market.
Yes.
I like all this tech, I like the big screens and all, but I'll have to admit, probably the most frustrating area of my life is, the computer and when it doesn't work. And now to take all that stuff and put it in a car, it just seems like you're just opening up yourself to problems.
Yeah, it's funny you mention it. I mean, Bion stands for bytes on wheels because,
right.
Essentially you're right. Our cars now, especially electric cars, are going to be tech on wheels. And, let me put it this way. Yes, software is buggy. And when it's all about the software, it's got its own problems. But to me, we're switching from mechanical problems to software problems. And those are
mechanical. I can
problems.
fix though. That's the problem. Or I can hit it with a
hammer,
but I can't hammer a bite out.
The thing is, you can fix both, but the problem is you can fix the software ones with over-the-air updates, just like your cell phone, and that's what Tesla and other manufacturers are starting to do now. When there's a problem, or if they want to improve your car, they just send an over-the-air update and boom, it's gone. And Tesla has done it many times, either fixing an issue or improving the car, making it either faster or adding a feature overnight. Where with, with gas cars, you have to go and try to fix it, physically and spend your time somewhere. And you can't improve it, obviously, because it's not exactly IoT connected. And, mechanical problems, software will get better and better, especially with the standards and regulations and so forth. Like that software just cannot be that bad because otherwise it just won't be released or approved. And the software doesn't get worse with time like mechanical parts, right? That's
sure.
Just by nature of it. So yes, we are going to go through growing pains, and we are still doing it with Tesla and other cars where software is buggy, and especially with self-driving software, there will be issues. But overall, you will probably end up with a pretty good quality product, and you'll be happy that you won't be having to deal with the mechanical issues that we've done for decades, really. So cautiously optimistic there. I think you will be surprised how much reliable the software will be once it's standardized.
I hope they put up pretty good firewall software too to keep the hackers out of them.
Yeah, that too. As a matter of fact, they did. This is the biggest, obviously, problem, right? Making sure to it's not hackable. And I believe the guts and the brains of the car will have no interaction with the outside world, and there will be a really, really secure firewall, like it is right now with Teslas, where you won't be able to hack like the main parts of the car. But who knows? It just like I said, I expect growing pains, but I also expect great rewards once we figure it all out.
Alex, jumping into a different area, a while back, for a few years, Bruce and I were doing car review videos, and we have kind of a running joke that at first I was very uncomfortable being on camera, and being that he's a friend, I wouldn't get upset, but he used to call me the robot because I was very stiff at first making these car videos. But we still are, but you're a natural, and you look very comfortable on camera, and you have a personality with your videos. Did that come easy for you? And what kind of feedback have you had, being that you have a good personality on air and you have good, strong opinions? What do you get as feedback from the public or from the industry?
Well, I appreciate it, though I'm pretty sure I can find some people who will disagree with you. But, I think, I guess it didn't come naturally. I think if you watch YouTube videos about how to do YouTube videos, I think the first thing that people say is that you first need to learn how to be you on camera, because it's actually much harder than you think.
Yes.
When I think I finally kind of broke through as far as just being me and having my personality kind of shine, if you will, on camera,
yes,
is when I stopped worrying about what I look like on camera.
Gotcha.
When it was like, you know what, this show is not about me. This show is about me delivering information and giving my own opinion and history about all the kinds of news. And most of my viewers are, men, and 96% of my viewers are men. They're not watching me for my haircut or my, pretty eyes. They're watching me for information. So I could literally be a puppet and the show would be just as successful.
Yes.
So once I realized it, I said, you know what, screw this. I'm just going to go and do it. And I think, and I know this is going to sound weird, but I don't, just like, in school, I never took notes. I always just listen, and whatever stuck in my brain, it's stuck in my brain. So I never prepare really for my shows or my interviews, except for, of course, the information I need to know to release to my audience that's new. I'm just big fan of this. I kind of live electric cars, so everything is already in my brain. So when I go and interview somebody, I know exactly what I'm going to ask them. And as long as I ask them, like if they were my buddy or a new friend, the interview looks natural, and that's what people enjoy. So yeah, I just, if you stop giving a crap what you sound or look like, and that's when you become you on camera.
That's a very good answer. Thank you.
Oh, one other question. Has your next electric car been built yet? And if not, what might be your next electric car?
So as I mentioned, I believe I'm a reservation holder, and I'm going to be switching from Tesla to most likely Audi e-tron. It's their new all-electric SUV. I just test drove it in Marbella, Spain, and I have a video about that. We actually went off-road, and we took it on a racetrack, and I had 2 days driving it throughout the beautiful south of Spain, and so I got a pretty good idea of what it is. I can tell you that it's not a better car than Tesla. I don't think there is a better car than Tesla right now, but it's good enough where I will still enjoy my drive, but my ownership experience overall will be better than Tesla's, right? If we're just talking about cars, yes, I don't think anybody can compete with Tesla. But if we're talking about ownership experience, I think pretty much everybody's better than Tesla. And I know Audi's build quality is going to be better because, if anything, they know how to do that. I've also missed the luxury. When I pay $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 for a car, I expect luxury, which Tesla does not have inside of their cars, right? So I'm going to get that back. And what I'm going to get back is good customer service, not having to wait for parts for weeks or even months, not having to be on hold for over an hour when I have an issue, not having to wait for a service appointment for weeks or months when I have an issue. All of things that have driven me from Tesla had nothing to do with the car, and what's driving me towards Audi has nothing to do with their car either. I just think their car is the first one on the market that's good enough. There are quite a few of them coming out right after them, and if somehow I end up with passing on the e-tron, there's a Mercedes EQC coming out later this year. I was also lucky enough to ride in one during the LA Auto Show. Very decent car, great Mercedes car. Porsche Taycan, that's probably going to be better than Tesla and Model S in many different ways. That's coming out as well. And let's not forget the more affordable cars that are just really amazing. Kia Niro EV just drove it here in Santa Cruz for their immediate drive.
Yes.
A great car for its money, great range and everything, and it's kind of a sister car, Hyundai Kona EV. Also, we're talking about under 30,000 after all the incentives. And more and more and more cars are being planned in the next 12 to 24 months. So Audi e-tron is ahead of the game for me, just simply because they're coming on the market before anybody else. But again, if I pass on that, there's still quite a few great cars with what I believe is going to be a great ownership experience that I'll be able to choose from, and everybody else will be able to choose from.
Alex, I can't help but asking on a personal level with Elon Musk, the general public probably hasn't really come around to his cars. Everybody's heard of his name. They may even know why he calls his cars Teslas. But he's in the news every day or almost every day for something, his personality, some people think he's, off the rails. He's got some personal problems. The customer quality, as you mentioned, how they're making the cars or not making the cars. Do you have a personal opinion about how he's handling his business?
I do have a personal opinion about it, and it actually cost me a lot of subscribers, and it still is causing me a lot of subscribers because my opinion about the industry is unbiased, and I'm not taking sides of anybody. If I see a problem, no matter who or what it is, I will call it out if it's slowing down the electric car revolution. I think Elon Musk, I've always thought that Elon Musk is one of the most important people in the world, one of the greatest innovators. And I admired him greatly. What he's done is absolutely unbelievable. And he didn't have to do this. He was already a billionaire after, selling PayPal to eBay. He could have just enjoyed the rest of his life at his own private island or, continent. But he decided to change the world with electric cars, SpaceX, the space exploration, and artificial intelligence, and so many other technologies. Unfortunately, something happened in the last year and a half or even 2 years. He himself kind of says that it's been stress that's been getting to him. But I'm also kind of, even in my video today, I called out pretty much his friends and family who are all around him and seems to not being able to either identify or sort of curbed his kind of very non-typical behavior, at least for him. Though I will have a guest on my show who's knew him personally for a while, and he told me that Elon has always been this way. We just never saw it. So we'll explore that. But, his behavior, even today, right, my biggest story right now in the video that I made last night that I posted today is, he's in trouble with the Securities and Exchange Commission for no other reason but being, at the lack of a better word, just stupid.
Yes.
I understand he doesn't like them, but their job is their job to protect investors from erratical behavior and manipulating stock. And you can definitely make a case that they don't go after people they should be going after. But as far as him concerned, if we're just talking about him, he has just done such silly and stupid things, and he's now paying for them. And I think the worst thing he's done is calling that a diver, the rescuer of those boys in Thailand,
Yes.
A pedophile with no evidence, never saying I'm sorry or I was wrong, insisting and doubling down on it over and over again with no evidence. To me, that's probably the worst thing he's ever done.
I agree.
Everything else, everything else that he's done, with the tweets and all the trouble he's in, he's now getting punished by the universe, which in this case it looks like SEC. I don't know when it's going to stop. I don't know how much it's going to cause and cost him. But what bothers me is that, it's a reflection not just on him, not just on Tesla, but on all of us who are trying to push this electric revolution onto the world, which obviously is very resistant. So when we are talking not about how great the electric cars are and how great the Tesla Model 3 outselling everybody with this amazing technology, but how Elon Musk might go to jail because he tweeted out something stupid, it's not only not helping, it's actually working against us. And I think that's the personal problem that I have with him. It's funny that, I actually met him in person a couple of months ago at the boarding event. I ended up just standing right next to him as he was talking to the crowd.
Yes.
And I decided not, because this was my opportunity to talk to him. And I had nothing to say to him. It's kind of weird. There was no compliment at that point I kind of wanted to give him.
Yes.
And there was nothing that I wanted to tell him or discuss or say to him because I'm just so taken back because I don't even know who this guy is.
Yes.
So here's me, the guy who lives electric cars, standing next to basically the leader of the revolution, and I had nothing to say to him. I just stood there for 5 minutes and then watch him, say his goodbyes to everybody and walk away.
Yes.
That was a very odd experience for me because I don't even know who he is anymore, and it's a shame because he is an amazing individual.
I'm so glad I asked, and not to compliment myself, but your answer just shed a lot of light on it for me because you're an insider and you have these thoughts and maybe some conflict even because you expressed how important the vehicle is and how important his technology is, but the guy behind it is doing it a disservice, just like you said in a better way than I did. But thank you for that answer in particular. The other question I was going to ask is about what are some of the other players. We've laughed over the years about that small company that the guy tried to bring out, the Elio, and that seems to have disappeared. And do you have anything to share about that guy, Paul Elio, who made a lot of claims and it went away? I think it's gone for good now. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think just like with any new technology, there will be a lot of startups and most of them will fail. As a matter of fact, it's amazing how few of the startups have failed. I mean, probably the biggest sort of famous one is Faraday Future, which is still somehow kicking. So the number of failures I see is actually pretty minimal.
Yes.
But, and this is how new technology grows, right? You're going to try different things and you're going to fail. And that's sort of, those failures contribute to the success of the rest of the community. So that's perfectly fine. We know that Fisker is probably one of the first failures of this industry. And when I talked to Henrik Fisker about a year ago, I did ask him. I said, Henrik, you're now, came out of bankruptcy. You now have another company, and you're now taunting yet another car in our face. How can we trust you that you can do better now?
Yes.
And his answer actually surprised me. He basically said, listen, at that time, there wasn't, we had to do everything ourselves. And the only thing that we outsourced was the battery, and that company went belly up. Now, nowadays, if that happens, we just go to another supplier. But at that time, that was the only supplier.
Yes.
And, once our battery supplier folded, we folded. And this time around, we've learned our lessons and we can do better. And I was like, you know what? He's right. This is not my first YouTube channel. I had a couple of others that didn't go that far, and I've learned, and I've done better with this one. And I think everybody listening, you guys and everybody listening right now, I'm sure they can relate with something that they failed at just so they can get better in the future and be successful. So I'm okay with all of this, failed companies, because I know they've tried and they've probably contributed to overall success. So yeah, it's unfortunate because I know people lost their jobs and careers and money, but that's just how you do progress.
Yes.
Yep. That's probably true.
Alex, it's probably a good way to end our great discussion. I feel like I've learned a lot from an expert, and I'm glad that our friend Ray introduced us last night, and I'm sure that our paths will cross again. So we really want to thank Alex Guberman. His YouTube channel is fantastic, E for Electric, and check it out. He's got a very good personality, and he obviously knows a lot about the electric industry. So we want to thank you, Alex, for being our guest today on the Weekly Driver podcast. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was fun. I actually kind of forgot we were doing recording this as a podcast.
Okay.
I was just kind of having a good conversation with you guys, so I really appreciate it. This was fun.
That's a nice compliment. We'll take that, and we'll see you, I'm sure, soon. Maybe we'll call you or vice versa. We'll have a cup of coffee or lunch together somewhere in Sacramento. That would be great. The Weekly Driver podcast gets support from AmericanMuscle.com, your late model Mustang and F-150 authority, bringing you the hottest products and top-notch customer service for over a decade. No one makes it easier to modify your ride. Visit AmericanMuscle.com today